What's going on, friendly people of YouTube? Welcome to part 38 of the Rick and Morty app series. In the last part, we put together the location cells as well as created the delegate that gets called when you tap it. In this part, we're going to hook up said delegate and open up the location detail screen. So let's get to it. And as per usual, hit that like button down below. It actually means so much more than what I can stress, but I won't complain for everyone's ears to bleed. So let's continue here. So we go ahead and we call the delegate here in the location view where we select a particular table view cell. What I'll do is in our controllers, we want to assign the delegate to be self. So we have the view in here already. Particularly we called it primary view. I will say the delegate will simply just be self, and we want to conform to the delegate accordingly, like so. And I'll stick it over here. So I'll say this is this delegate. And the function we have in here is named accordingly, and this will get called whenever we select a location. Now, just like what we did for our other detail screens, we want to go ahead and create another controller, and this is going to subclass the UI view controller, and I'll call this RM location detail view controller. Alrighty, we'll save it, get rid of all this template code, and inside of here, the first thing I'll do is I will give it a title. I'll also give it a background color, and we probably want to create this controller with a location that we want to show details for. So I'm going to say this takes in a RM location. We'll want to assign it accordingly, and we'll also want to retain it in here in the controller. Now, I realize that we're holding the model now directly on the controller, and maybe we'll actually create the view model from this, but let's at least get this set up and take it one step at a time. And that's actually a pretty good call out that I do want to stress. Like when you're trying to build something, try to do it iteratively. Your code does not have to be perfect in any way, shape, or form. When you start, building it out, a lot of people emphasize like build it correct the very first time you build it. I'll be the first to tell you that when I built my first apps over 10 years ago, they were absolute trash. So, if you're struggling along the way with this, trust me, I've been there and you're not alone. So that spiel out of the way, now that we've got this controller here in the location view controller, we are going to create that controller, the detail one. So I'll instantiate it here and we'll pass in the location that we get from this parameter. And we want to say vc.navigation item. We'll make the large title display node never. And we want to push this from right to left. So we'll say push animated true. So let's give it a build and run. In our locations tab, when I tap on a location, it should in fact show that new screen, and it actually appears that it's not. So I am going to see what the heck I screwed up, because we'll put a breakpoint in here. Looks like we're not going to that function, because if we were, we would actually be going to the other screen. So let's jump back to our view, our location view. I assume we're hitting this guard, right? So let's see if we are. I do think we assigned the table view delegate, which we did. And what we're saying is we're saying that if the location model exists from our view model, then we can continue here. Otherwise, we'll hit that return. So what I'm using here is a debugging technique called breakpoints. If you're not familiar, you can hit one of these line numbers and this blue thing appears. And we want to see if the code hits that when I click on this. And in fact, it actually does. And at the bottom, in this bottom panel thing that opened up, we can hit the little play button and it'll continue our app execution. So that means the bug actually exists in this function we added, which retrieves a location model. So we're going to say if the index that we are trying to get is greater than or equal to locations.count, we want to verify that, otherwise we'll return nil. So actually, I found a bug. So we want to verify if this is greater than, then we want to return nil, not continue. So we're going to say verify the index is actually less than locations.count. So if we have 10 locations, we want to find a number, an index that's 0 to 9. So I'm going to say verify the index is less than that. and that index is greater than or equal to 0. We don't want to, support negative index positions, and that will actually fix this. So luckily I made this mistake on my own, so good debugging experience. So let's go ahead and click this, and now we're actually opening up location details. So awesome, it actually works. Let's see what's on our location and how we're going to go about rendering the details. So a single location will give us the same information again, but the most interesting thing that it will give us here is residence. And if you guys recall, if we come back to episodes and click into here, this screen looks very, very similar to what we'll probably want for location, such that we have info up here and that we have characters down here. So let's see if we can get away with copy and pasting everything that we did for episode details. So what I'm going to do is we'll open up episode details here, and we want to create basically a location equivalent for each of those things. So we'll create a location details as a folder. I'm going to create a new view here, and it's going to be subclassing a view. We'll call this RM location detail view. Beautiful, we'll create it like that. Get rid of all this stuff in here. And this one also has a a episode info collection view cell. We're going to reuse this cell since there's kind of no point in creating another cell that looks identical to this. The smart thing to do would probably be to rename this as something a little better, but we're just gonna at least get it to work before we mess around with naming. So let me copy every single thing that we have inside of the episode detail view. We're gonna paste it down here and we're gonna rename everything. So in here, we're gonna rename everything that's RM episode detail. We're gonna do a find and replace, and we're gonna rename it to RM location detail. And make sure it is location and not locations. Let's get rid of this guy up here. And everything that's a RM character, we want to go ahead and rename to RM location. Alrighty. Actually, we don't want to rename that. I take that back. We don't want to actually rename that because we are going to be able to select a character. So let's actually go through this and we'll read everything. So this is saying we're using the RM location detail view model. We have not created this, so let's open up the view model folder and let's make it accordingly. We have that episode detail thing right here in the episode detail folder, the episode detail view model. Instead of calling it a thing, let me call it the appropriate thing. So I'll create a Swift file here. It will be the RM location detail view model. And what I'll do inside of here is I'll paste that, but to simplify my workflow, I am going to just copy the entire thing that we have in here for episodes and just stick it inside of the location variant that I just added. So I'll take this, toss it in here, and we are just going to rename everything. So everything that's RM episode detail will become RM location detail. And the reason I'm kind of glossing over all this is it's literally identical, so we're kind of just copy and pasting and repurposing. I do realize that we're duplicating code and we probably should have some sort of shared, abstract object, but for now, we'll just simplify this. So this function is did fetch episode details. We're gonna actually change this to be did fetch location details. Awesome. And let's continue onwards. Let's see what's going on. So here we have did fetch location details. We create some view models. Here we have section type view model, and here we have the character type. That looks good as well. We have a detail view model delegate reference, same cell view model types. Constructor looks good as well. It looks like we're taking in a endpoint URL. So for the endpoint URL, we'll want to create this and pass it in. And then we have character at index. This is to get the actual character when the user taps on a character cell. Then we have create cell view models. I believe this is good as well, except instead of having an episode here, we want this to actually be a location. So let's come up to our data tuple, and this needs to be a location, a RM location, and make sure you rename this as well. It's really important that you rename everything appropriately, otherwise things get pretty confusing. So we'll change this, change that to location. All right, so let's see, the created string is now going to be location.created. And let's see what else we're doing here. Alrighty, now we're going to change all of these view models since we have different data. It's going to be location name, the type, the dimension, and it looks like we have created as well. So I'll say this is location dot dimension. This will be location dot type, and this one is location dot name. For characters, we'll do the exact same thing. There's actually no code change needed there. And let me make sure I'm updating the documentation strings here as well. So fetch backing location model. We're going to go ahead and call this fetch location data. We'll try to get that URL and convert it to a request, so that's all good to go. The resulting response will be a location rather than be a episode. And in this case, we're going to fetch related characters for a given location. So fetch related characters, location. And here, instead of taking in an episode, we'll take in a location. We're going to say location.residence. Keep in mind that this residence is coming off of the location model that we have. Once again, exact same code, nothing else here is going to change. We will create those requests and kick them off with a dispatch group, and we'll hang on to all of the results. The only difference is our data tuple will actually have location instead of episode. So we changed a bunch of stuff. Let me build the project and see how many errors we have. Hopefully not a lot. Looks like we have one error. So it can't find episode in scope, which is correct because it doesn't actually exist. It's going to be location. And it looks like we are in fact good to go. So let me build and run this, make sure nothing is crashing. We still need to hook up the controller, but it does look like we're in good shape. So that there is the location detail controller. Let's cheat and copy everything in the episode detail because that's essentially what we are, repurposing here. So I'm going to take everything inside of here, and it's actually not that much code. So let's go ahead and let's see if we can finish it in this video. So I'll take everything from in there, and let's see, this takes in a location and we hang on to the location, but let me actually do this and change everything. So everything here is going to be location. So we're going to update these delegates that we conform to. The view model type will be once again RM location. Awesome. And then here we have a detail view. This is going to be for RM location once again. The initializer is going to take in what we had before was a location. Alrighty, and how I'm going to create this now is by using the URL on the actual model. So we'll say this is a URL, location.url. The model actually has a URL string on it, so that'll behave. Continuing down, we have add constraints, assigning the delegate. Let's update the title here. We are saying fetch episode data, which we renamed to fetch location data. We're adding constraints, looking good. And then over here, this needs to be different as well. This is going to be a RM location detail view, did select a character. And here we have configure with view model. Now, I believe this is going to yell at me because I forgot to update the protocol function name for this guy here. So for the location delegate, location detail view delegate, the detail view should be the location view. So actually it does look like that is correct. So let me see why this is yelling at me. We're not conforming to something apparently, and it's did fetch location details. So let's see, where is did fetch in here? Should be in here previously, and this should be updated to did fetch location details. So a whole lot of copy and pasting. Let's give it a run and let's see if it actually works. So beautiful. If you look at that, we actually were able to completely repurpose this screen and all the way that its view model is set up to build out a location detail view. Now, I will take a gigantic step back and say because we copy and pasted everything, this should be a huge red flag telling us that, hey, we can probably use the same underlying view model, but we want to just make it more configurable and repurpose the view and rename it so it's not specific to a location or episode, but it's more generic. But in this case, in our series, we're going to stick with it this way in case you do want to change how this looks. For our location, we see we have the name, the type, the dimension, and created. We're formatting the actual date there, and then here are all the residents that reside at that particular location. So let's say I want to learn more about another resident. We can say, let's do Poncho, and let's see what we get. We should be able to tap on that. And cool, we now get character details. And let's say I want to see what episode that Poncho's in. It seems like it's only one episode. Here we have more characters that are in this episode. Cool. We can continue down, and here's another episode, and so on and so forth. So that is all I've got for this video. We actually did quite a bit with copy and pasting. It looks like we are using a lot of cached API responses, which is great. I am going to get rid of this print here since it's going to get obnoxious really fast. But that's actually why we're able to pass in the URL to our view model and not worry about duplicating API calls. So we basically, in summary, just copied everything that we did for the episode detail for location detail. That is all I've got for you guys today, but as a good developer, we are going to push our changes to our Git repo on GitHub. So I'll add everything. I'm going to add a commit message of builds out location details screen, and we will do a git push to push all of our work remote side. Drop a like before clicking away. Subscribe if you're new here. We still need to actually build out the search functionality for each of these screens. We're going to build it out in a reusable way, and then we'll get into improving all of our code, documentation, and testing. So I will see you guys there.